This is the Chefpreneur podcast, where we inspire professional cooks to take on greater risk to build a personal chef business for themselves. Now, here's your host, Andres Hinojosa.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Chefpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andres Hinojosa. Thank you so much again for tuning in today. Again, we'd just like to thank you for supporting this podcast. We just get so many of you commenting about how it's changed your life and how it's motivated and inspired you and given you hope. And it really just, there's nothing that means more to me than to hear those words. And it really just means a lot to me that you guys are tuning in and that you're giving us your precious time every day and actually listening to the content that we put out. So again, we're just going to keep bringing this podcast every week and hopefully just keeps adding value to your life. So we really appreciate your support. As all podcasts, we start off with a question. And this question is actually coming from a question that was asked by someone who just signed up recently for one of our webinars. And Erron asks, I want to learn about personal equipment, setup, and packaging meals for reheating and what the client expects with that. So great question, Erron. So this is when we talk about weekly meal preparation services, and particularly, I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. And so when you're doing this service is basically when you come into the home, you buy all the groceries, you come in, and you're going to actually prepare several meals for the week for a family or for a couple or for an individual, and you're actually going to store them in the refrigerator for them to reheat later. And so you do everything there at their house fresh, and then you package it up, and then you label it, and you leave, right? So the packaging that I would recommend using in a weekly meal preparation is those Pyrex Glass dishes. And the reason is because you're probably going to want them to get reheated in the oven, because that usually is what tastes better. Unfortunately, clients will still heat things up in the microwave. And again, you're not going to be able to stop them, but you definitely want to give them some food that's going to probably be best reheated in the oven. And so I really highly recommend the Pyrex Glass containers. Again, they're reusable. They're, obviously they last a long time. They're safe. They're not going to have, they're not going to be full of the chemicals that plastic have in it. And so basically, when you go into a client's home and you're going to start doing this for their family or for them, particularly, like, you want to really just advise them that you need to, that they should buy so many of these containers. So when I first did my first weekly meal client, which I no longer offer those services in my business, but I did start the business out by offering that service as well. And I just basically told the client that these were the best containers for us. So they went out and they bought, many sets of them. I think it was 20 in total of the medium-sized kind of container. And so basically, when I would cook, I would lay all these out on the kitchen counter. I'd be cooking my meals that I was preparing for them and plating them in these Pyrex dishes, and then allowing them to kind of cool room temperature, then slapping the lid on them. And then I had a little there's just those white labels that you would get anywhere at some office supply store. I'd put a little white label on it with a Sharpie and then write what it was. And then I would realistically just email them or give them a sheet of reheat instructions. So there's so many different ways to do it. I know that there's other personal chefs that use basically throwaway disposables and different types of containers, plastic containers, and so forth and so on. Again, I personally like the Pyrex because it's a little bit safer for the family to reheat, as well as it's a little more professional, and you're able to just put it straight from the refrigerator or even from the freezer straight into the oven for them to reheat. So hope that answers your question, Erron. Thank you so much again. Hey, if you guys have a question that you want answered on the podcast, you can either send us an email at podcast@chefpreneurprogram.com. That's podcast@chef, PRENEUR, program.com. Or you can go ahead and find our Facebook, Chefpreneur Facebook movement group, and you can join that group. It's 100% free, but it is a closed group or a private group. You just have to ask to join, fill out a little questionnaire, join that group as well. And we love to answer questions and pull questions off the Facebook group as well. So again, so those are some great resources. If you guys want to learn more about starting your personal chef business, definitely I highly recommend joining our Facebook group, the Chefpreneur Movement Facebook group. So thank you again, Erron, for that question, and I look forward to answering many more of yours. So we're going to dive right into today's topic. In today's podcast, I titled Confidence or Arrogance. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit of a touchy subject. I know that many of us as chefs, we can tend to kind of be a little arrogant about our skill set and what we like to do. But I really want to bring this home today because it's been something that's been on my heart lately about realistically, when you start a business, the difference between confidence and arrogance and where that fine line is, not only just in a personal chef business, but even personally in your life. But realistically, a lot of business people and entrepreneurs struggle with this, right? And so first I want to start off by just actually reading you the definition of confidence. Okay, so confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. Okay, now I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind. Let me repeat that again. Confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. Okay, notice how it says rely on someone or something. Now, I'm also going to read you right now the definition of arrogance. The definition of arrogance is the quality of being arrogant. Now, I know that's obviously self-explanatory, but listen to the synonym that it's there. The synonym, another synonym for the synonym, excuse me, it's a tongue twister, for the word arrogance is self-importance. Okay, basically you're putting yourself on a pedestal, right? It's all about you and its importance. Now, if you guys have been listening to the podcast for a while, I teach completely against all about you, right? Now, the reason why I titled this podcast Confidence or Arrogance is because confidence will actually grow your business and arrogance will actually kill your business. Let me repeat that. Confidence will grow your business. Arrogance will kill your business. Okay. Now, this is not just my own theory. This is literally what will happen. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of why what I'm saying is true. Okay. I've been teaching in my program, in the Chefpreneur program lately, that you have to come in. So in a program, let me start here. In our program, we teach you how to start your business from start to finish, right? From the beginning to the end, we build it with you from the ground up. Now, when you are building your business and you really understand the business that you're building, you're going to have more confidence. In fact, a lot of the people that have joined our program have already started a personal chef business or thought they started one or really stepped out in faith and really started taking a couple, steps, whether it was getting their insurance, like we said on our web class, or whether it was, getting a logo design made, or they thought of a business name and went out and bought their DBA. And so they technically, are starting to make the moves to start their own business. But then when it comes to pricing and it comes to actually doing things for the client and presenting their services to the public and to the marketplace, they get a little worried, right? And this is where you can back yourself into a corner. And we talked about pricing already on another podcast. And again, a lot of what comes from pricing and how you actually feel, comfortable charging what you charge is through confidence. Right now, again, the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something. Think about this. If the client feels like that you are confident in the services that you can provide them, okay, now the way that they reach that level of confidence is that you literally make it all about them, but you also have to make them feel confident that you know that you can actually deliver the services that you're telling them you can deliver. Right? Now, nobody's perfect, so we're not pretending that you have to be perfect and that you're going to shoot, 10 out of 10 or, you're going to get a home run every time. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about that you're confident in your services and your ability to serve them. That's what we're talking about. And clients can smell that a mile away. They can smell when you're confident and when you're not. Let me give you an example. What happens if a client calls you as a personal chef and they ask you, you're going through your spiel on the phone and and I train you in the program exactly how to take control of the conversation and take control of the phone call and allow you to be in control so that you're able to dictate what's being said and also so you can find out the most amount of information to get from them that you can serve them 100%, right? But you're on the phone and a question comes up where it's like, well, I've never done this before. And, so there, a lot of times clients will say, oh, I've never done this before. And I really don't know how it works, right? If you can't explain the process of how it works and the process of booking you, and then when the question comes, when they ask you, if they ask you the price that you charge and you're just kind of like, you don't know what to say, well, and you're kind of going back and forth and you don't have all this stuff ahead of time and you don't have this stuff, really set in concrete in your business, what does that do? It's a lack of self-confidence, right? And instantly, instantly, they don't care about the price. They don't care about any of that. In fact, when clients call me and they finally, again, I've told you guys many times in this podcast that 7 or 8 out of 10 people never ask me about the price, right? Because I control the sales call. I control the phone call. I'm digging into what they want. I'm listening to what they want. And I'm really speaking about their true reason why they're buying, which is an internal problem. And I discuss that in my program. I teach that more in depth, right? But when they're on the phone with me, a lot of times when they finally do, if they do ask me for my price, I'm very confident in it. Well, you know what? It's very simple. We charge XYZ plus the cost of groceries, and we don't charge any sales tax on top of it. There's no service or travel charge. And the reason why we charge our groceries on top is because if you have a preference of organic or non-organic, or there's, specific things that you want to, maybe you want a prime ribeye steak or you want lobster or shrimp, obviously those things are high ticket items. We are basically just charging you for what we do in our services. And, we're hired to basically cook the food that you're buying already, right? And so when you tell them a price with confidence, they feel confident that you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about, right? Think about it this way. I know I refer to mechanics a lot on this podcast, and I don't know why I do it because it's just an easy analogy for me to just explain things to you, is that, for instance, let's say you have that Mercedes-Benz I've talked about on the podcast before, right? And it's sitting there in your garage and you have some issues with it. It just doesn't seem like it's firing up right, and there's just some problems with it, right? If you reach out to a few mechanics and a mechanic's like, oh yeah, I can fix anything that, has wheels on it. You're like, okay. That sounds a little bit like arrogance, right? Now you're talking to somebody who's arrogant, right? But here's what it is. If you call another mechanic and he's like, you know what, I specialize, I'm not really keen on, I don't really fix Honda Civics, so, whatever. Maybe you're calling them for a Honda or Toyota, and he's like, I really only fix Mercedes-Benz. But then when you call that person for your Mercedes-Benz and he says, so what's the problem? What tends to be the problem? Well, when I go to start it gives me this, this 3 clicking noise. Okay. Does the clicking noise happen when you try to push the gas pedal down as well? Yes, it does. Okay, I know exactly what that problem is. I've dealt with it many times. I'm assuming you have a 1989 XYZ, whatever Mercedes. Oh, how'd you know that, right? There's a level of confidence that comes from that experience, but also that they're trying to help you right off of the phone right already. Now, think about this. If you were actually going to entrust someone to fix that Mercedes, would you go with the mechanic that says, oh, I know how to fix anything with wheels? Or would you go with this other mechanic that's saying, hey, you know what? I know what it is. I know the problem. I know Mercedes. He's not coming out and saying that like arrogance would, right? Like the arrogant guy would, but he's coming out with a surety. He's sure of himself. He's sure of what he's offering. He's sure of what he can do for you. And most time in your businesses, in my business as well, there's been clients that have called me and asked me if I do weekly meal preparation still. And I tell them, unfortunately I don't. And that's okay, right? Because again, they want to know with what I'm all about. I don't want to stretch myself too thin and be doing tons of other stuff in my business because there's a lot of opportunities you can do as a personal chef. You can do cooking classes, you can do this, you can do that. In my program, I teach that you don't want more than 3 services because then it starts to confuse people, because then you turn into the chef that wants to do it all. And someone who does a lot of things okay never does one thing well, right? And so doing that one thing really, really drives home with the confidence, right? Now, arrogance, like we all know, will really repel customers. Why? Because you're always talking about yourself. So if you find yourself where you're like, oh yeah, man, I make the best steak in the world, right? I mean, give me a break. Like, no offense, there's a lot of people that can cook a good steak, right? In fact, a lot of it has to depend on the cut of the steak, right? The cut and the quality of the piece of meat that you're cooking. But what happens is that when you're on the phone, if let's say that same person was calling about personal chef services to an arrogant chef, and they say, well, you know what? I have 6 years of experience, and I've done these types of events, with my eyes closed, and all I get is raving review. You notice how the whole thing is about them. And remember what the definition and the synonym of arrogance is self-importance. They're putting themselves above the client. They're putting themselves above the customer, and that will kill your business. Not only will you lose out on the sale, but really, does anybody want to be around an arrogant chef? I mean, think about it. Now, we've talked in this podcast before about servitude and about the 3 things I believe you must have to be a personal chef and really hit it home, right? But think about it this way. If a person is going to hire you, right, for your skills, they do want you to have confidence in your ability, but when you're speaking to them and you're around them, if you're all about yourself, it's completely pointless. They really don't want you to come cook for them. Again, I've talked about on this podcast, if someone's hiring you for their husband's 50th birthday, they don't care about you. I'm sorry to break the news to you. They do not care a flying flip about you. They care about their husband's birthday. They care about giving him a spectacular experience, giving him a great evening. They don't care about you, right? And it's funny because most of us, even when we're not trying to be arrogant personally or even purposefully, like we're not doing it on purpose, sometimes we're just trying to show off a little bit that we have, our credentials, and you've been a chef for 10 years and I have 20 years experience in the business. And sometimes I know that a lot of you mean well when you say it, but it's actually probably losing you that sell. If you're a personal chef already and you're like, Chef, I've gotten many calls for my services, but for some reason they don't hire me. And if I dissect the phone call or whenever they reach out to you, if I dissect what you're saying back to the client and how you're speaking to them, I could probably tell you why you're not being hired. It's as simple as that. Because even those little tiny things, when you're not trying to do it on purpose, will make you arrogant. It puts you out there as being arrogant to the client. Now, the client, again, wants confidence, meaning that when they ask you a question, you have an answer, right? When they ask you about your services, you know what your services are. And you could tell them, oh, well, absolutely. Our service includes that we go out grocery shopping, we come to the home, we prep everything in your home, we cook and serve you, and then we clean up the kitchen spotless when we're done. Right? It's not, they don't sound assured, right? And again, they are putting something big into your hands, whether it's weekly meals for their family, for really healthy, nutritious, food every week, and not, they don't want to go to McDonald's anymore. They won't want to go to fast food restaurants. They're entrusting you with their family's health, with their nutrition. Right? So they are entrusting you with a lot. So they want to have a level of confidence. They want to know that if they hire you, you are sure of yourself that you can get the job done and you can serve them to the best of your ability. Right? And so there is a little bit, people say there's a fine line. I think they're polar opposites, confidence and arrogance. But at the same time, sometimes you have to watch yourself. So it's going to take you a little bit of time to look at the verbiage that you use and the words that you use, right? Because again, you want to assure them that that you can, you want to assure them that you can do the services that you're offering, but you don't want it to come off arrogant. Right? Now, if they ask you for your experience, if they ask you how many years you've been cooking, then you tell them, and that's okay. But you don't say those things to try to impress them. Because when you do that, again, it's going back, you're trying to have self-importance. You're trying to make yourself important to them. And in a sell, basic 101 in sales is you always put the customer as the hero of the story. You always put them first and you put yourself last. It's as simple as that. And there's a confident way. Again, they want to know that you're confident in the services you provide, because if you just start coming out saying, well, I'm a newbie, I'm this, their confidence level in you is going to probably go down, right? And you're not lying to them, right? If you don't say something, but you can also just be confident about how you're actually offering your services and talking about your services and talking about your pricing, right? Because if they say, like, I've had clients tell me before where I've actually said my pricing and they're like, oh, you know what? Jane Doe, we got a quote from another personal chef and it was like half of what you charge. And I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. And, and I said, I'm sure they're worth every penny of what they charge. And we just know, we we love to serve people, and we know the value that we're going to bring to you. And so and I even told them flat out, we're very confident in our services. And so, we believe that our price reflects that. And the guy was so impressed. He was like, you know what? I really like that answer. You're very confident. And I said, no, again, sir, we're not trying to be arrogant, but we are confident in what we do. We love to serve people, and we would love to serve you the same. And that gentleman ended up booking with me, and he left me a great tip. And he was super, 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 super over the moon excited and happy with our services. And then he came back at the end of the event and said, you know what? You were worth every penny. And notice how I said that the other personal chef would have been worth every penny as well, but they're charging half of what I'm charging. And I'm not saying that they're delivering a bad product or anything like that. And I'm not even trying to put them down that I'm better than them because I charge more money. No, I'm just really confident in my team. I'm really confident in my brand. I'm really confident in my ability to serve them. Therefore, since I'm confident, I know that what I'm charging is correlating and it's parallel and actually matches up with how I serve people and what my services are all about, right? And when you start talking about arrogance, it sometimes leads into desperation because you're trying to impress them so much to get the sale or to get them to believe that you can really do what you say you're going to do. And unfortunately, that arrogance comes off and it really can repel the client more than anything else. It can really repel the client and you'll start to see yourself losing business left and right when you're arrogant. So I know it's kind of a little bit of a bad taste in your guys' mouth because a lot of us chefs, again, we have pride. We love the skills and we know the skills that we have. We've worked on them. We've honed them out for many, many years. We know what we're capable of. But in this business, and any business for that matter, but especially in this business, you cannot walk around as an arrogant chef. You can walk around with confidence because confidence will attract clients, but arrogance will repel clients. So I hope that this podcast really resonated with a lot of you out there. I hope it was able to expand your mind and open it up, the difference between the two. And I really hope that it helps a lot of you out. So thank you so much again for tuning in today. Hey, you know what? Listen, my name is Andres Hinojosa. We created the Chefpreneur movement for one single reason. We want to motivate, educate, and inspire as many chefs to take a stand for their personal freedom by breaking the chains of a kitchen job and building their own empire by starting their own personal chef business. We truly believe that the future is yours and you can put it into your own hands and you don't have to put it in someone else's hands anymore. Hey, we're still giving away our free ebook. You can find our free ebook at becomeachefpreneur.com. That's become a chef, Preneur. .com. So becomeachefpreneur.com. You can also sign up for our free webinar or free web class if you go to the chefpreneurwebinar.com. That's the chef, Preneur webinar.com. As well, you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll find all of our podcasts on our YouTube channel as well. So if you just go to YouTube, you search Chefpreneur, again, Chef, Preneur, just search it there. You'll see our channel there. Please hit subscribe and please click on the notifications button, as well as on Facebook in our Chefpreneur Movement Facebook group. So again, go to Facebook, type in the Chefpreneur Movement. You'll see our free group there. Again, it's a private group or it's a closed group, but it's free to join. You're able to answer a couple questions and we'll approve you right away. And you'll be in a community of other like-minded chefs wanting to start their own personal chef business. And it's a very powerful resource if you're looking to do this or really want to find out more about it. So again, thank you guys again for tuning in. I can't wait to speak to you next week. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Chefpreneur podcast, where we want to educate, motivate, and inspire as many chefs to become their own boss. Please subscribe to the podcast and join us every week to be part of the movement. To sign up for our free online web class, visit thechefpreneurwebinar.com.